Dear Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, dear PS at the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, Distinguished Director General of the Rwanda Cooperative Agency, government representative, the private sector, cooperative leaders, non-government organization, faith-based organization, researchers, and civil society. Good morning, everyone. Greetings to each and every one of you, and welcome to this webinar about what can the Geospatial Information System, GIS, tell us about agriculture cooperative market viability in Rwanda. I am Ariane Naituriki, and I'm honored to be the moderator of this webinar. On behalf of the organizing institution, namely RICEM, the Rwanda Institute for Cooperatives, Entrepreneurship and Microfinance, RICEM, OCDC, Overseas Cooperative Development Council, and the email support of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, we extend our appreciation for your participation today. In this webinar, the new geospatial data findings will be presented, awareness of the agriculture cooperative technology gaps and performance in key research areas will be raised, as well as brainstorming strategic intervention to enhance agriculture cooperative development. Before we start, I would like to quickly give us a short tour of this Zoom, and only the main option that are going to be used, especially for the Q&A and discussion. Kindly always raise your hand in case you have a question, and or write in the chat or in the Q&A option here on Zoom. I would like as well to each and every participant right now to start sharing their names and the institution they're representing in the chat options. Without further ado, let me now welcome the Director General of RICEM, Dr. Mukurira Olivier, to deliver his welcome notes.
Thank you, Ariane. Permanent Secretary, Minister of Trade and Industry, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources, Director General RCA, USAID representative, Overseas Cooperative Development Council representative, development partners, cooperatives, consultants. Good morning and welcome to this policy dialogue seminar organized jointly by RICEM and OCDC, with the support of USAID, of course. OCDC has conducted a research on advancing technology in agricultural cooperatives to improve the market viability in Rwanda. As RICEM, we are pleased to coordinate the dissemination of findings as it's in line with our mission of conducting research for the development of cooperatives. I'm grateful to both PS, despite their busy schedule, they got time to participate in this event. My appreciation goes to DG RCA, as well as for his support since the beginning of this assignment. Finally, I'm thankful to everyone here present. I wish us fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olivier Mukurira, for the welcome notes. Again, I would like you to join me to welcome Mrs. Leah Marie Lucas, the research manager at the International Cooperative Research Group, to as well deliver her welcome remarks.
Good morning, dear attendees, esteemed permanent secretaries, esteemed USAID mission in Rwanda, esteemed institutions RCA, NCCR, ESRI Rwanda, civil society, private sector, and cooperative members and leaders. It is a great pleasure to be here today. The U.S. Overseas Cooperative Development Council counts with 10 member organizations that work to promote cooperative development in countries around the world. The International Cooperative Research Group is a research division of OCDC, which implements a research agenda to advance cooperative development, find out what works, and how we can improve practice together. A key component of the ICRG research process is to return to the locations where research was conducted to share the results and engage in action-oriented dialogue. For this reason, we are here today. We are delighted to be joined by all of you. We hope that you will share your expertise and your insights in the opportunities for dialogue and discussion. We know that each member here present has rich contributions to add to the dialogue and to add to our common learning. Thank you, and let this be a fruitful engagement.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Leah Marie Lucas, for the welcome notes. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have the honor of the presence of the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Line Ministry of the Cooperatives in Rwanda. With that, we would like to invite the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry, Mr. Niwanshuti Richard, to officially deliver the opening remarks of this webinar.
Thank you so much, moderator. All protocols observed. MD RICEM, MD Rwanda Cooperative Agency, Director, International Cooperative Research Center, OCD and ICGR. I am also pleased to be joining you in this policy dialogue on advancing technology in agriculture cooperatives to improve our market viability. Let me start by, first of all, thanking you for attending this research dialogue, and thank OECD and ICGR for the initiated and funded on these timely research discussions. As the Rwandan partner institution, members are Rwandan agricultural cooperatives play a key role in domestic market of foodstuffs. It is important that the domestic agri-food system can meet the dietary needs of our Rwandan society. Additionally, Rwandan exports constitutes a good percentage of agricultural commodities, which is important to our Rwandan GDP. Agriculture retail commodities may serve as the first value chain to pilot GISI technology and improve the productivity, but also give us a clear indication of the profitability that we have. This GISI technology can help the country to reach its strategic plan for agriculture transformation by 2024, for private sector-driven investment, and also provide us with critical data to inform policy decision-making. I also want to reiterate that with GSI usage, it also could help us identify suitable input by partners, analyzing existing businesses, partnerships, and also helping us at the Ministry of Trade to map our trade routes, but also studying our productivity at an aggregated level. This is much to really retaliate the importance of this gathering and also make the full sense of why we think this is an important discussion that brings us together. I also want to add on to this that with the use of GSI, it can also help us to make it simple in the sophistication of both agriculture and trade systems and allow us for a macro level view of diverse inputs and actors. Distinguished members joining this webinar, let me also take this moment to look at the state of act that we are in today. The venue for strengthening the dialogue between policymakers, development partners, and cooperative stakeholders, cooperative leaders, and other actors, it is an intentional and required need objectivity. Once we have these findings, they will help us to inform our national and sectoral level decisions, as well as help us to review our progress towards technological applications in agriculture and cooperative development. I look forward to discussions and the outcomes of this policy dialogue, really bring together all the partners are here and their inputs and comments, and also really look at the questions that could really require more findings in different research areas that we are also interested in. On behalf of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I once again want to retaliate the interest that we have in this kind of discussions for the intent of really being data-based decision-making, but also being analytical in the area of policy directions that the country takes. Once again, would like to really thank the gathering and the organization of this dialogue and look forward to the output of these discussions. Thank you all for your kind attention, and on behalf of the ministry, I declare the opening of this session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niwenshuti Richard, for the opening remarks. That said, to officially kick off this meeting, we are pleased to welcome the Director of the International Cooperative Research Group at OCDC, Dr. Judith Hermanson, to enlighten us about the background and the motivation for GIS in Rwanda Agricultural Cooperative Study. Given that we are 6 hours ahead of the Washington, DC, where she is currently, the speech is a pre-recorded video. With that, I ask you to give the full attention and call upon Mr. Adebi to kindly play the video.
Honorable Permanent Secretary of MINICOM, Honorable Permanent Secretary of MINAGRI, Director General of RCA, bilateral and multilateral organizations, cooperative development partners, presidents of federations, cooperative leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Warm greetings from OCDC's International Cooperative Research Group. We are delighted to co-host this important meeting with RICEM and present to you the outcomes of the recent innovative research we have carried out in collaboration with Rwandan partners. In this meeting, we hope that the research will come alive and that the findings you will be hearing about and discussing today will be useful to the cooperative sector and the government of Rwanda. On the global stage, and especially on the African continent, Rwanda is one of the best performing economies, which demonstrates the benefit of good governance in creating a conducive environment for business and supporting economic sector development. According to the Rwanda Development Board, agriculture is a major economic sector for the people of Rwanda, employing about 70% of the total population. The industry contributes about 31% to GDP, and it stands out as one of the most strategic sectors in Rwanda's development. It accounts for a significant part of the foreign exchange earnings from the exports of products. The agricultural cooperative movement in Rwanda is comprised largely of smallholder farmers, which is one way they improve their income and livelihoods by taking advantage of economies of scale, both in aggregating their output and organizing and purchases of improved inputs. Cooperatives are engines of economic growth, offering a dynamic and flexible business model, production, marketing, and service delivery. Led by the value of social justice, cooperatives and vehicles for promoting productive work and decent lives for all. As autonomous, value-driven, and locally governed entities, they foster social inclusion and strengthen solidarity. It is clear that the cooperative movement is a worthy method to employ to reduce income inequality, unemployment, and underemployment, while building a better world and a better economy. Pillar 2 of the Rwanda National Agricultural Policy, technological upgrading and skills development, highlights the importance of agricultural development. It presents a research agenda for bridging Rwanda's agricultural and technology and skills gap. The policy emphasizes the importance of developing skills for farmers, youth, and women, which will help to alleviate poverty in the long run by creating economic opportunities. Such policies can be informed by these research findings that we talk about today, which test new technologies and strategies that can increase resilience and sustainability. Cooperatives have leveraged ICT in diverse cooperative value chains to improve management, operations, and productivity. Many farmers' cooperatives have received mobile smartphones with management and marketing applications, making data more accessible to managers on inputs, finance, prices, and market opportunities. All of this is excellent. This GIS pilot study in Rwandan agricultural cooperatives intended to explore if GIS data visualization can be cost-effectively used to identify factors affecting the productivity and commercial viability of primary cooperatives in Rwanda. GIS is one of many technological innovations revolutionizing the logistics and retail trade. It is playing an increasingly important role in quantifying agricultural production throughout the world by helping farmers to increase production, reduce costs, and manage their land more efficiently. We believe that the OCDC ICRG research findings have the potential to inform policies and strategic interventions that can pioneer improvements in the agricultural cooperative sector to achieve a modernized agricultural system that reaches the greatest productive capacity while protecting precious ecosystems and delivering important benefits for rural families. We hope that this will be the case in Rwanda, and we believe that the results of this research have potential for elsewhere. Rwanda can lead the way. OCDC acknowledges and thanks all partners who helped to make this research possible, most notably RCA, NCCR, ESRI Rwanda, OCDC's local liaison, Mr. Shesa Galakan, and the 400 plus agricultural cooperatives that participated in this study. We thank also USAID for its financial support of the study, and we thank all participants present in this morning's meeting for your interest and your presence and your participation. I wish you a fruitful meeting as we work together cooperatively. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Judith Hermanson, for enlightening us about the background and the motivation of the study. It is certain that the GIS will significantly contribute to the development of agriculture cooperative. Before we proceed, I would like to call upon Mr. Garikan Chese to briefly translate for us in Kinyarwanda the speech. Mr. Garikan, the floor is yours. Kindly unmute yourself.
Hari abagenzi bacu batumva ururimi rw'icyongereza bashobora kuba bari kumwe natwe, niyo mpamvu twifuje ko duca mu ncamake mu byo bavuze kugira ngo nabo batahane umusaruro w'icyo tugamije kumva muri iyi nama. Hari rero amagambo yavuze yo gufungura inama yavuzwe n'umuyobozi mukuru wa RICEM, Dr. Olivier, ashimira abafatanyabikorwa, ashimira abitabira inama ndetse ashimira n'uburyo abaje mu nama turi kumwe nabo. Hari umuyobozi w'ubushinzwe ubushakashatsi muri OCDC. OCDC ni ikigo cya banyamerika gishinzwe guteza imbere amakoperative no gukora ubushakashatsi. Nawe yashimiye amakoperative, abayobozi bakuru, ndetse ashimira n'uburyo ki bafashije mu kugira ngo babashe kwitabira inama. Hakurikiyeho umuyobozi mukuru muri Minisiteri y'Ubucuruzi n'Inganda, nawe atangira ashimira abitabiriye inama, ashimira OCDC na ICRG mu bushakashatsi bwakozwe, ashimira amakoperative. Ikindi agaragaza ko amakoperative ari amwe mu yatanga umusaruro w'ibyo dukoresha buri munsi. Agaragaza uburyo ki amakoperative afasha mu bigendanye n'ubucuruzi mpuzamahanga, cyane cyane mu byoherezwa hanze. Nanone yongera ashimira mu bice bitandukanye amakoperative akoreramo. Agaragaza ko GIS cyangwa se ubushakashatsi bugendanye no gukoresha ikoranabuhanga buzafasha kugera ku ntego ya leta yo guhindura ubuhinzi bukagera ku cyerekezo n'icyifuzo leta yifuza. Yongera avuga nanone ko ubu bushakashatsi bufasha mu kwisuzuma tukareba aho tugeze ugereranyije n'intambwe turimo guterana y'aho twerekeza, ndetse ikindi agaragaza ko ubu bushakashatsi bwerekana ko politike yose ikorwa y'iterambere buyigiramo uruhare ko butanga amakuru akenewe. Avuga ko gukoresha nanone ubushakashatsi bwa GIS biri mu bimwe bizatuma ubuhinzi n'ubucuruzi byuzuzanya, kuko ari ibigo cyangwa se ari sekiteri zifatanya. Icyo gihe ubushakashatsi bukaba buzaba nk'ikiraro kibihuza, ndetse noneho yongera kuvuga ko ubushakashatsi ari kimwe mu byerekana ko politiki y'amakoperative igeze ku rwego rwiza, kuko nibo ba mbere bagerageje ubushakashatsi. Ikindi avuga ko ubushakashatsi buzafasha kugerageza mu kwihutisha iterambere rya tekinoloji twifuza mu buhinzi. Asoza ashimira kandi yizera ko ibibazo biri bubazwe mu nama bishobora gutuma haboneka igisubizo mu bibazo bigaragara mu makoperative, kugira ngo amakoperative n'iterambere ryayo bigere aho bigomba kugera. Nanone agaragaza ko ibyavuye mu bushakashatsi nanone ari bimwe mu bifasha bikubiyemo mu gutanga amakuru, kugira ngo abakora politike z'ubuhinzi n'ubucuruzi zibashe kugenda neza. Rero ku bwa minisiteri akorera, ashimira muri rusange kubwe na minisiteri abitabiriye inama, kandi abifuriza inama iri butange umusaruro. Umuyobozi mukuru wa OCDC, iki kigo cyakoze ubushakashatsi, nawe yatangiye ashimira abitabiriye inama, abayobozi bakuru. Atangira avuga ko ari ikigo gikora ubushakashatsi ku iterambere ry'amakoperative ku isi hose, ndetse avuga ko yiringiye ko inama iri butange umusaruro ushobora kuvamo ibisubizo bimwe mu byo u Rwanda rukeneye. Yerekana nanone ko mu Rwanda ari igihugu kimwe mu bihugu by'isi bitandukanye, cyane cyane noneho muri Afurika, gifite ubukungu bw'iterambere bwihuse. Ubwo biri mu bimwe mu byatumye bifuza gukoresha ubushakashatsi mu Rwanda, aho yagaragaje ko ubuhinzi nibura 70% by'Abanyarwanda bakora ubuhinzi, kandi ubuhinzi bukaba nibura bwinjiza 30% by'umusaruro mbumbe w'igihugu. Byerekana ubuhinzi nk'impamvu nziza yo gukoreramo ubushakashatsi. Ikindi agaragaza ko amakoperative ari moteri y'iterambere ry'igihugu, kuko ashingiye ku miyoborere myiza ishingiye kuri demokarasi, ndetse yorohereza ishoramari. Agaragaza ko rero ICT cyangwa se ikoranabuhanga mu by'ubuhinzi bizagerageza kuzamura umusaruro n'imicungire, ndetse n'imikoreshereze imikorere mu makoperative. Agaragaza ko ubushakashatsi bwa GIS nabwo mu buhinzi bugamije kurebera hamwe amakuru yatangwa, ndetse agakoreshwa mu buryo noneho iterambere n'ubucuruzi mu buhinzi bigerageza kuba ibyihuse n'ibimeze neza. Ikindi yagaragaje nuko GIS ari innovation cyangwa ibintu bishyashya bitangiye mu buhinzi, bikaba bitangijwe mu bushakashatsi bw'iki kigo, aho byagaragaye ko byajyaga bifasha mu bindi bikorwa birimo nk'ubwikorezi na logistique. Ubu ngubu bikaba bishaka gushyirwa mu bikorwa mu buhinzi, kugira ngo noneho bivugurure ubuhinzi bigendanye n'iterambere ry'ubuhinzi n'imikorere y'ubuhinzi igihugu cyifuza, kandi mu buryo bubungabunga urusobe rw'ibidukikije. Asoza ashimira rero RCA, ikigo cy'igihugu gishinzwe iterambere ry'amakoperative, mu bufasha cyatanze, ikigo cya ESIR Rwanda, urugaga nyarwanda rw'amakoperative. Ashimira RICEM, ashimira n'amakoperative 400 yakoreweho ubushakashatsi mu musanzu watanze, hamwe n'ikigo cy'Abanyamerika cy'iterambere cyangwa gishinzwe gutera inkunga OCDC. Asoza ayifuriza abantu kugira inama nziza ndetse itanga umusaruro mu bifatanye. Nibyo muri makeya byavuzwe. ku batabasha kumva wenda ururimi rw'Icyongereza, nakomeza nkaba umwanya umuyobozi wa gahunda. Murakoze.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gadikani, for translating for us. And before we proceed, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources. You are most welcome, sir. The next presentation, allow me again to welcome our next presenter. She specializes in the area of program design, implementation of global project management, and evaluation of projects seeking to advance agriculture, food and nutrition, rural economic livelihood, social enterprise, gender, and humanitarian response. The presentation will discuss the GIS pilot study, analytical findings, and policy implication. We will see the result of how they are important for the development of the agriculture cooperatives in Rwanda. You are most welcome, dear Ms. Lisa Marie Lucas, the Research Manager at OCDC.
Thank you very much, dear moderator. And once again, it is a pleasure to discuss with you today. I have the honor to present the research findings of our pilot study in Rwanda. And so to begin today, I would like to provide a brief outline of what we plan to do together and what we don't plan to do together today. And so we have a brief outline here on the slides. You can see that we plan to discuss very briefly the framing for this research program, a bit of our motivation for defining the area of study. We will give a very brief overview of the methods of the research. This will not be a technical research presentation, but rather a walk through GIS to show what GIS can do for us and to share some of the highlights and the insights that we received from this research that we conducted, including a large number of descriptive statistics that are going to explain and provide a bedrock for us to discuss the cooperative sector in Rwanda. We will then summarize and enter into some discussion questions. And so to begin by framing our dialogue today, it is important that we are well aligned with both Rwandan government policies, strategies, and visions for the future, and also the larger African vision for the future. And so we would like to begin by aligning ourselves with the Rwanda ICT sector strategic plan, which is aiming to work toward a digital-enabled economy. Clearly, ICT and the use of data methods such as GIS are an important part of this work toward a digital-enabled economy, because when we have better data, we're able to make better decisions and better investments. In addition, we are in line with the Rwandan Vision 2050 and the focus on economic competitiveness underpinned by modern technology, innovation, and research. We are aligned with the Rwanda Vision 2050 and the focus on agriculture's key role in economic growth and poverty reduction. And we are well aligned with Africa 2063 and the vision for modern agriculture for the continent, which will contribute both to farmers' prosperity and national prosperity and the continent's collective food security. And so Rwanda can play a very important role, not only in the continent, but also in East Africa to secure food security in a critical time. So the conversation that we can have here today can be an important one and a productive one. Additional framing for our research project, I would like to acknowledge some key partners that made this research possible. This research was informed by data that was leveraged from a number of sub-Saharan African countries, including Rwanda, from the OCDC Cooperative Learning and Leadership Experiences, which were training events that were held in several countries over a period of years. And so from this data, we found that the Rwandan cooperative sector were demonstrating some of the highest profitability compared to the neighboring countries and compared to the other countries in this study. And it was really this data finding from our bedrock previous research that led us to ask why. Can we go back to Rwanda and conduct some further probing to understand the dynamics of the cooperative sector, in this case, the agricultural cooperative sector, so that we can perhaps take these insights and lend them to other countries, understand better how to learn from more profitable cooperatives in Rwanda, and perhaps share lessons with those who have not yet yielded such economic success. We were also very privileged to be informed by RCA data sets on cooperatives in the country, which also served as the bedrock for us to begin our research together with active and live data sheets. We were also informed by publicly accessible geospatial data, secondary value chain analyses, and secondary literature. We were pleased to be partnering with ESRI Rwanda. The team was led by Principal Investigator Dr. Nicole, who is here with us today. So welcome and thank you so much to ESRI Rwanda's team for the fantastic work that they conducted in the field and analytically for this project. We were facilitated by the National Institute of Statistics in Rwanda to be able to conduct this field work, and we are very grateful for the opportunity. And we are also facilitated, most importantly, by the cooperative members' willingness to participate in this project. We realize that without that willingness, we would not have this data today, and we would not be able to leverage this data to have productive conversations to shape a more productive future. So thank you very much, and let's dig into the methods. Data was collected from 400 cooperatives countrywide. We took great efforts to have representation in our data set, both in terms of diverse agricultural value chains in Rwanda and also geographic representation. And so rather than focusing on one specific value chain or one specific province or region of the country, we really wanted to try to get the broadest brush possible to be able to understand the dynamics of the overall sector at the country-wide level. We conducted a multivariate regression analysis on key value chain variables that were identified. The dependent outcome variable was business membership ratio, which is revenues amassed over a 12-year period divided by the number of members to yield more or less revenue per member, which is what our proxy variable for economic productivity was in this study. BMR is the way that I may refer to it in this presentation. And we had key independent variables that have an impact on the value chain in Rwanda. Some of these independent variables were related to land organization, distance to, so asking how many kilometers do cooperative members need to travel to obtain inputs? How many kilometers from the center of the cooperative to the area where the crops or the products are going to be commercialized? We also had variables that were pertaining to subsistence farming and how subsistence farming interacts with the cooperative crop. So for example, are cooperative members also engaged in subsistence farming? Yes or no? If they're engaged in subsistence farming, where do they do that farming? Is that farming conducted on the same plot as the cooperative agricultural plot, or is that farming conducted in a different location? We had value chain variables such as infrastructure. We know the importance of infrastructure to facilitating trade, to facilitating efficient transition of crops from farm to market. And so we wanted to know, is there electricity at these locations? Do cooperatives have storage facilities? Do they have offices? How are the roads? Are they traveling on paved roads or unpaved roads? And how far are they from the nearest paved road? We also asked them how they're transporting their crops. Are they transporting them on bicycle? Are they transporting them on their head? Are they using another method of a public transport or privately contracted means? And we explored some other variables as well. And so just to give you a flavor for the types of independent variables that we were looking at, those are a few examples, but we also wanted to control for a few variables. And so we controlled for location, we controlled for longevity of the cooperative, and we also controlled for the presence of a manager so that these variables would not interact with the others to skew our results. And so while I have provided an in-depth explanation of some of the variables, most of this presentation will focus on the more concrete findings and the really macro level vision of what we have learned about the sector from the research. And so here we can see the number of cooperatives that were included in our sample by value chain. And we see that the main crops reported are maize, Irish potatoes, coffee, and vegetables as the highest four crops that are very important. Potatoes, vegetables, rice, and beans represent staple foods in Rwanda, as you know, and are usually seasonal crops, which are giving these crop rotation options in many parts of the country. Coffee is the main traditional agricultural cash crop that is grown over many different regions of the country. And the production, you will see in subsequent slides, is really spread as well by district. And so we have cooperatives represented in nearly every district of the country. And this, you can see the highest number of cooperatives is in Musanze district. This is because compared to other districts, most of the Irish potato and vegetable cooperatives are located in this district due to its favorable soil and climate for the value chains. And so then asking, what about that profitability variable that we are so interested in, the outcome variable? So this BMR, how are we looking at the profitability by value chain? I don't think anyone is surprised to see that coffee is on top, and coffee as a cash crop did show to be one of the most profitable cooperatives that in terms of the BMR, but there were also some other notable profitable cooperatives that are in runner-up, such as maize, peas, fruit and nursery, rice, and even flowers. All of these sectors are coming before tea, which was actually quite interesting as we were analyzing the data. And so if we go down to the opposite end, we will find that we have some other cooperatives where perhaps the sample size was not so large, like silkworm, which did not show to be very profitable, but the sample size was quite small for silkworm. And we will then go on to see what GIS can tell us and how we can use GIS to really understand geospatially where our data points are in the country. And so, as I have mentioned, we are looking at BMR. And so on this map, we're looking at the circle as indicative of the overall BMR on an annual basis, the average BMR by the agricultural cooperatives. And so here, the larger circle means that the cooperative was more profitable. The smaller circle means that that cooperative was not quite as profitable. And so the scale can show you the exact figures. But really what we're interested here are the largest circles, because those largest circles show us that we have highly profitable cooperatives across the entire country, which is actually a quite interesting finding and an important finding, which shows us that it does not matter, in fact, in which district we are located. It is possible to have a highly profitable cooperative in most any region of Rwanda, which is quite a positive finding. And it shows us that there's something to be learned from these highly profitable cooperatives that is not down to is not down to geographic limitations alone. And so next we will look at the best performing cooperatives by value chain. And so here we have different colors of the circles to indicate the different types of cooperatives. And so we have first the coffee cooperative, and it should not be a surprise that we are seeing the coffee cooperative in Gakenke district. This is quite a popular location for coffee production. We also have the blue, which is representing maize, and you can see several places on the map where we have blue markers. And I will continue on now to again show the BMR, which is the important variable that we're looking at, which is helping us understand profitability. And so again, we see Gakenke, which is the highest BMR, which is standing out in the northwestern part of Rwanda. It is home to the coffee cooperative with the highest BMR, as we saw on the last slide. And so in addition, we can see that in the eastern provinces, we are also seeing very well performing cooperatives in terms of BMR, except for the province of Bugesera, which has a low number of agricultural cooperatives. We don't see much happening on the map in that district. And so now I want to go down to the micro level and ask, who are these cooperative members? And so in this presentation, I will kind of transition between the macro level view of the agricultural sector in Rwanda, and then the micro level view that asks, who is really a part of this cooperative? And so you can see here the basic demographics of our sample. We had definitely a bit of a skew in the data along gender lines. This being said, looking at data from other African countries, Rwanda is in pretty good shape in terms of moving toward parity. So we're seeing 45% of female members and 55% of male members. There's definitely still work to be done, and I know that Rwanda is taking steps to shorten this disparity and work toward parity. But it is not too far away, and it is in fact ahead of some other indices at the regional level, which is important for diversity. It's important for economic development and, of course, economic inclusion of women. And then we also ask the question if the cooperatives have a manager in place or not. And so having a professional manager, we hypothesized, might have some type of a relationship on the profitability and on the overall professionalism of that cooperative. We found that the majority of the sample does not have a professional manager or any manager in place. And so over half of our sample of 400 do not have that manager. And so then we delve further into the question on these managers. So who are our cooperative managers? What kind of experience do they have? We know that experience is not always based on education and degrees, but oftentimes built on lived experience. And so we also wanted to ask about the number of years of experience that they have. Again, over half of the sample of the managers have fewer than 5 years of experience. So this is showing that they don't have such an extensive number of years as managers for the majority of those who do have managers. Additionally, we wanted to see what level of education do our managers have. And as we know, managers often can have a wide range of duties such as finance, accounting, management, personnel management, and so it's interesting to understand what type of training have they been through. And again, we did not find too highly educated in terms of the majority of the sample size. We are seeing that we are not having a level of education that we were asking about, which was either primary school, secondary school, and the bachelor's degree being completed. And so again, we are seeing that there is some room here in terms of training, even if they're not formal degrees, but rather training programs and opportunities for certifications in areas that are really important for business success, such as accounting, finance, and other key areas. And so going on to the question of infrastructure, we wanted to understand what type of infrastructure the cooperatives themselves have at their disposal. And so we're talking about agriculture here. We do understand that some value chains are highly vulnerable to very high temperatures. And so the minute that you are going to do the harvest, you need to begin the timer then, and until that product gets to the market and gets to the consumer and is then consumed, we have a great variable of risk. And that variable of risk can lead to food safety issues. It can lead to spoilage, which has a negative impact on the profitability of the cooperatives. And of course also on the nation and region's food security. So spoiling food is not good for anyone. And having proper and adequate storage is one of those key antidotes to having spoiled agricultural goods. And so we wanted to know, do cooperatives have electrified storage? And if so, do they have even an office and an electrified office as well? And again, we found that electrified storage was very rare for our cooperative sample. Only 22% of the sample had electrified storage. And that 22% is actually 22% of those who had the electrified office, which you can see is only 71 cooperatives out of the cooperative sample of 400. And so we're taking 22% of 71, which is really a low number from the entire sample overall. And so again, we see that we have some room for professionalization so that we can move cooperatives more toward a business and away from maybe the house. Sometimes the cooperatives were reverting to doing meetings under a tree or in their house, which is fine, but it's maybe allowing for less rigorous analyses and less rigorous business practices to take place in those settings. We wanted to know as well the situation of transport. As I mentioned, this risk variable during transport of getting goods to the market in a consumable and safe state is absolutely essential for the well-being of the population and for the profitability of the cooperatives. And so as we can see here, the distances from the cooperatives to the other locations, these are average distances for transport. The average distance to Kigali is about 66 kilometers. And so 66 kilometers might not sound like a long distance, but as you all know very well, the geography of Rwanda, going through mountainous terrain and perhaps regions which are not so easy to traverse, especially without private four-wheel drive vehicle, can actually be quite a challenge when transporting agricultural goods. And so this is quite a long distance when discussing trying to get goods from point A to point B. In addition, we have the distance from the cooperative to the storage point or to the sale point. We also had the variable to the market and to the home of the cooperative members. We mapped out the distance to inputs, the distance to the farm, to the office in the case that the cooperative had an office, and then of course to the storage and the farming area. And so we found diverse distances in our calculations, and the next question then to ask is, how are they getting there? So we do have some distances that we need to traverse as cooperative members. And it's important to understand then what is the key means of transport here? And is this means of transport adequate to really getting the product safely and efficiently transported? And so we were actually surprised to find that over half of the sample of 400 cooperatives has as the primary means of transport the transport on the head. And so this is demonstrating quite an inefficient transport method. We understand that it may be a limited distance. Perhaps they need to go from the farm to the storage on the head when they're able to go then perhaps on a bicycle or a pickup as the next route. But even the second most common means of transport was bicycle, which again is a very helpful means of transport, but definitely not the most efficient one to be transporting goods at scale in a really timely manner. And so the third highest answer was regarding the pickup, and then we followed that by lorry. And as we think of a pickup in a lorry, we begin to understand a bit more that we are now at an area, a level of agriculture that is more mechanized and more commercialized, because we have modernized transport, which is going to allow the goods to get from point A to point B and in a more timely manner. And so the other question to ask was, okay, as they are having some distances to travel, what type of roads are they traveling on? And the vast majority of the cooperatives, 93% of the sample, were all working from unpaved roads. And so they all had some distance, acknowledging that distance might not be so long for some of them to get to a paved road, which again is just one more element for us to consider as we are thinking about the best way and the fastest way to manage the transport of goods. Next, we had the question again, really trying to ask about the modernization component and how we are perhaps mixing in subsistence agriculture and the crop that is commercialized by the cooperative. We see that we have diverse cooperative farming practices in place, but we can say that the majority of the sample was using monoculture as the method. So we've already given the disclaimer in the nuance earlier on, which is explaining that sometimes the monoculture crop, it is not given in a continuous basis, but rather is going to be it is going to be swapped with another crop for a period of the year, which is of course going to replenish some of the nutrients that the other crop is not giving to the soil. So it is still monoculture, but it is perhaps a little bit more regenerative than just the same crop monoculture all year long. So we can have that hope and that nuance to this intercropping versus monoculture finding. But we do have the understanding that at times intercropping can have great impacts and great benefits for profitability. And so we've seen different agroforestry systems and other intercropping possibilities where you're really able to use the same land and get double, triple, quadruple profits. And so it does seem that there could be some unexploited opportunities for more sophisticated intercropping and profitable systems that could give cooperatives perhaps an additional value chain or two if they explore that route. Additionally, we're looking at the subsistence or the agricultural cooperative crop that is being commercialized, and we find that majority of the participants are separating out their subsistence agriculture. And so this does seem to be a positive finding in terms of the commercial viability of the endeavor. So keeping all of those cooperative crops together can perhaps decrease the risk of side selling. So we have 67% which are separating out their subsistence plots from their cooperative plots. And again, we asked about subsistence farming and whether the farmers were engaged in subsistence farming, and we found that the vast majority of these farmers are engaged in subsistence farming. And so a very small percent of the sample were not engaged. We can assume that it is a standard practice to maintain the subsistence farming for the family while also having the other product for sale either at the national level in local markets or even exporting internationally. And of course, we wanted to see how some of the challenges that come to perturb agriculture affect the farmers in the study. And so again, we were asking in recent, for the past year, what type of climate challenges have they faced, such as pests, droughts, and floods? We found that 46% of the sample had suffered from pests in this time period. 30% had suffered from floods, and 24% from droughts. And so those who understand the topography of Rwanda can probably begin to ascertain which districts were in floods and which had suffered from droughts in recent times. And so this is helpful for us to take this as a nuance of the finding. There are some components of agriculture that will always be left to the variance of chance, and these are some of these climate challenges that are now coming even more strongly for agricultural producers. And there are ways that we can remedy and build systems for climate resilient agriculture and climate smart agricultural practices, but we did need to take a look and see how climate challenges could have been impacting as well some of these profitability variables that we were looking at, like BMR. And so next we asked, what if we look at specific value chains? So rather than taking the sample of 400 from value chains across the spectrum in Rwanda, let's just see what we can say about distinct value chains with this GIS data. And so we had 51 coffee cooperatives in the sample, of which we had 24 of these coffee cooperatives had a manager. So it does seem that the coffee cooperatives are more likely to have the manager than some of the other cooperatives, because it is almost 50% of the coffee cooperative sample that has professional managers, which makes sense as coffee is one of the highest BMRs and one of the highest and most profitable export crops. And so again, we found 26 of these cooperatives. Again, 50% of the sample of coffee cooperatives do have an office, and fewer of them, only 17 of them, have storage facilities. But again, we're finding about half of the sample having some of these components of what makes for a more modernized and a more professionalized system of production. And so here on the map, you're seeing the larger circles, which are showing us where are those most profitable coffee cooperatives located. And again, following up on the overall findings that we found from the aggregate sample, it doesn't mean that it doesn't really matter if you are in the specific and most highly profitable province of the country for coffee production. We see that you can have a highly profitable coffee production in several regions of the country, which is again a positive finding from the research, which shows that that we are able to really exploit this opportunity for profit in more than just one location, which is great for Rwanda. Again, we asked about rice. What can we say about rice? And so we had 23 rice cooperatives in the study, and 18 of these 23 cooperatives have a manager in place. This being said, we also have 19 of the cooperatives with an office and 17 of them electrified. So this is actually a quite high percent, again, of the sample of rice cooperatives who are having in place a system which is seeming to be professionalized with a manager, with an office, and even with electricity and storage facilities. And so this again is a positive finding. Again, on the map, we are seeing where are those most profitable rice cooperatives located. And you can see on the map, they are located in mostly one region of the country, as the map is zoomed in a bit. Next, we looked at maize, and so we had 114 maize cooperatives. As you know, maize is one of the major staple crops in Rwanda, and there is an increasing demand for maize and also for maize processing. And the storage suitability is superior in terms of comparison with Irish potatoes or vegetables. And so we are having a high dependence on maize in many parts of the country and even in the neighboring countries' diets. And so we see the highly profitable maize cooperatives, again, are located in very diverse regions of the country. And interestingly, you will find a very profitable maize cooperative signified by a very large circle right next to a very a much less profitable maize cooperative. And so findings like this, demonstrated geospatially, are allowing us to ask some of these policy questions, like why is this cooperative at the side of the other, the neighbor of the other cooperative, doing so much more poorly? And what could cooperative A learn from cooperative B? And are there ways that we can develop programs of exchange and learning that could benefit not only the cooperative members, but also the overall economy and the GDP of the country? We looked also at vegetable cooperatives, and I will not spend too long on this slide to keep moving along, but you will see that the vegetable cooperatives that are most highly profitable are located in mostly the same region of the country, where we are having the more arable soils that are very suitable for the vegetable production. Again, when we are speaking about vegetable cooperatives, we are understanding that this is a highly perishable value chain. And so some of these cooperatives are simply selling their products from the field or bringing shortly after harvesting to a local market. And so just to give an example from this sample of 35 vegetable cooperatives, 20 of them are selling within a 5-kilometer distance. And this makes sense because of the previous data that we explored, which talked about the systems of transport, storage, and infrastructure that are not really in place to support at this time very long distances and a very rigid cold chain to be maintained. And so contrarily to some of the other value chains, such as coffee, where it was more common to have a professional manager, in this case, we don't find a large number of professional managers. We have 20 cooperatives out of 34 that do not have a professional manager in place, and the majority as well do not have an office. And so we're finding that this production is taking place on a smaller microcosm in comparison with some of these larger value chains where we're talking about sales in Kigali or sales even outside of the country. Irish potatoes, again, we have the most highly profitable region of the Irish potato, really overlapping the three most highly profitable Irish potato cooperatives. But again, we have a number of decently profitable Irish potatoes as well in diverse regions of the country. And so to move on to the conclusions and to give a bit of the macro level findings, the BMR variances that we found within the same value chain and across the geographic spread of the country is showing that the BMR is not neatly explained by any one variable in our regression analysis. In this case, it's not explained by geography, and it's not also explained by the aggregate number of variables taken together in the analysis that we conducted. A reason that we've hypothesized is due to the great diversity in our sample, because all of the key agricultural cooperative types are represented in this data set. And as we know, coffee has characteristics of production, of processing, and of sales that are so distinct from Irish potato that including all of the different value chains in the same study allows us to have the macro level overview for the entire country of Rwanda, but again, does not allow us to have as much of those granular intra-value chain dynamics that we could have found perhaps with an entire sample within one value chain or within one region. Again, this variance that we found in the BMR leads us to believe that there are opportunities for intra-cooperative sharing and co-op to co-op learning. And this would be a great opportunity for cooperatives to learn from the practices of other cooperatives and to increase their own productivity and their own profitability. There are also some lessons to be learned in management practices and in operational strategies. Some of these could be facilitated by GIS data sets. For example, the situation of transport is one that we can map out visually and understand where are cooperatives buying their inputs. And if all of the cooperatives in one certain region can understand this data about other cooperatives, perhaps they can make an optimal decision to buy their inputs together and have all of the cooperatives from one region renting a vehicle for one day and somehow getting the inputs facilitated to them. And so it's just an example of a way that we can leverage some of these GIS information, operationalize it, and use it to help make the sector more successful. We also could imagine that this GIS visualization of agricultural cooperatives could benefit national policymaking and program design. So institutions such as RCA, NCCR, and other agricultural related public and private entities certainly are already leveraging data sets in GIS, and there is more potential to include cooperatives in these data sets and to leverage the data to inform policies and to inform programs. And so then moving into the policy implications, we do see that there is room to grow, and there's room to improve and optimize the agricultural practices and the value chain variables that we analyzed in this study to move toward the key strategic objective of modernizing and increasing the productivity of agriculture and livestock in Rwanda, which will have positive benefits for the overall economic growth, in addition to food security and well-being of the Rwandan farming communities. We also see that there is a potential for us to support these agricultural cooperatives to improve their governance methods and incorporate more performance-based methods into their governance and into their management to cover some of the gap that we found in the experience and in the education of their managers. This is something where we see an opportunity for growth in the professionalization of the management of cooperatives. First, to have a manager in place, and second, to have that manager really with the training that they need to lead their cooperative into the next stage of farming and the next stage of agriculture, which is working toward all of our visions and our endeavors for the future. Additionally, we have the importance of supporting agricultural cooperatives to embrace the use of ICT in their operations and to improve their productivity and their efficiency. And so, of course, agricultural cooperatives are at very different levels of the scale of their professionalization, but also their technological adaptation. Technologies are diverse, and when we talk about agricultural technologies, we cover a wide gamut of different technologies. We have from livestock and artificial insemination to improve storage, improve drying strategies. We have climate smart agricultural practices, improved inputs, improved in precision agriculture, precision application of pesticides and insecticides. And so there are so many different technologies that it is important for us to be quite clear in our priorities and to be quite clear in the technologies that we would like to invest in. In this webinar, we are focusing on GIS as it is the new body of data that we have gathered from this research. And because of the potential for GIS to give us that macro level overview of the dynamics in the Rwandan agricultural cooperative sector, it is very fitting that we then are able to use this data and ask some policy-oriented questions about the aggregate cooperative sector and the way in which some of these variables that we have identified are interacting with profitability and interacting with some of our larger visions and goals. And so a few questions that I had for the members that we are joined by today are really just some provocative questions that I hope that we can get to in the later segment of our conversation. We will have some time reserved close to the end of our program for discussion, but your thoughts and your views are also welcome in the Q&A session of this presentation. These questions include what can be done to revolutionize and improve agricultural cooperative practices to ensure optimization. And so another query is, how can the country's need for domestic consumption and exports be simultaneously supported and strategies devised so that we are promoting both and securing both hand in hand. Also, regarding the performance-based governance and management improvements, we have already asked the question, is there a way that we could devise some type of co-op to co-op exchanges? Are these already in place? And if so, where are they working? And what are barriers that are not allowing them to work as well as they could? Another question was regarding good cooperative governance and what type of incentives the managers have and the leaders have to ensuring this good cooperative governance. What type of checks and balances exist in the cooperative sector to ensure that the cooperative principles are applied, to ensure that the governance is democratic? And so it would be nice for us to hear later today from some of these good governance examples that I'm sure our cooperators on the call have to share with us. And again, the larger thematic question of which actions can we take to advance the use of technology in our daily operations. And so here we want to be realistic. We're not coming down from the ceiling and discussing panacea situations. We want to have this conversation start from the ground up and ask you all, in which areas are cooperatives already adapting IT technology quickly? And which areas are quite difficult to modernize? Where is there resistance? Sometimes farmers don't want to change their methods without having proof that the new strategy is really going to work. And then what are those technologies at the co-op level that should be prioritized, at the aggregate apex level that should be prioritized, and at the national level that should be prioritized for us to move together forward in an optimal way? And so I want to thank once again our partners who made this research possible. We have been indebted to ESRI Rwanda for their excellent analysis and their in-country research, to Mr. Galakin for facilitating this research as our local liaison, both in the research process and also in the leading up to this research and policy dialogue. We thank NCCR for their support, and we thank RICEM for co-hosting and facilitating this policy dialogue with us today. To the ministries of Minicom and Minagri for your meaningful contributions and participation in this dialogue. It means a lot to us, and it shows that you are really committed to moving the bar forward. And to the cooperative members who participated in the research, once again, I thank you very much for your service. With these remarks, I will close. I will allow for a brief, I will allow the moderator to allow for translation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leah Marie Lucas, for the impressive presentation. As you can see, the result and the policy implementation of these findings are really impressive, and all the effort was worthwhile. Before we go to the discussion and also the Q&A, I would like to call upon Mr. Garikani for a brief translation for the people who are not comfortable in English, so that we can all together have the same understanding of the findings. Dear Mr. Garikani, kindly, the floor is yours.
Murakoze cyane umuyobozi wa gahunda, ndagerageza guca mu ncamake nk'uko mwabivuze ko presentation yabaye ndende, ntago navuga ijambo kurindi. Gusa nk'uko yatangiye asobanura, yatangiye yerekana imiterere y'ibyo ari bu presentingeho, yerekana imiterere y'ubushakashatsi, methodology yakoreshejwe, amakuru yabonye mu bushakashatsi, ndetse kugaragaza umwanzuro n'icyakorwa. Yatangiye yerekana ko ubushakashatsi bushingiye ku cyerekezo cya leta cya ICT Sector Strategic Plan, igaragaza ko igihugu cy'u Rwanda gikeneye kuba igihugu ubukungu bwacyo bushingiye kuri tekinoloji cyangwa digital economy. Agaragaza ko nanone bigendanye na gahunda ya leta y'icyerekezo cya 2050, aho u Rwanda rukeneye kugira ubukungu buhamye mu karere kandi bushingiye kuri tekinoloji, innovation ndetse n'ubushakashatsi. Agaragaza nanone ko muri icyo cyerekezo cya 2050 ubuhinzi bw'u Rwanda bukeneye kuba buteye imbere kandi bufite uruhare runini mu bukungu bw'igihugu ndetse no guca ubukene. Ndetse agaragaza icyerekezo cya Afurika cy'umwaka wa 2063, aho Afurika ikeneye kugira ibihugu bifite ubuhinzi buteye imbere n'abahinzi bakize ku mugabane wacyo. Agaragaza ko nanone ashingira ku mikoranire n'ibigo bakoranye muri ubu bushakashatsi. OCDC mu bushakashatsi bwo yakoreye muri Afurika yo munsi y'ubutayu bwa Sahara, ari byo byayiteye gutuma ihitamo u Rwanda nk'igihugu gifite iterambere ryiza ryashingirwaho mu karere, cyane cyane mu bahinzi, kuko aribo bafite umusaruro w'amakoperative, aribo bafite umusaruro uri imbere ugereranyije no mu bindi bihugu bakoremo ubushakashatsi. Nanone ashingiye ku makuru y'amakoperative bahawe n'ikigo cy'igihugu gishinzwe guteza imbere amakoperative RICEM. Arongera nanone bashingira ku bushakashatsi ndetse n'itsinda arishimira rya ICRG ryafashije muri ubu bushakashatsi, ndetse na ikigo cy'igihugu gishinzwe ibarurishamibare cyatanze uburenganzira bwo gukora ubushakashatsi mu gihugu hose, ndetse ashingira no ku bafatanyabikorwa b'amakoperative agera muri 400 aho uwo mushinga wakoreye ubwo bushakashatsi bwawo. Yerekana ko ubushakashatsi bwakozwe ku makoperative 400 ari mu gihugu hose, ndetse akora mu buhinzi butandukanye bw'ibigori, ibishyimbo, ibirayi, ubuhinzi bwose butandukanye. Agaragaza ko mu isesengura bakoresheje uburyo butandukanye kuri buri value chain cyangwa buri cyiciro cy'uburi buhinzi. Agaragaza ko mu byo barebaga ko umusaruro ku munyamuryango wa koperative ari cyo bise business membership ratio. Business membership ratio ari wo musaruro w'umunyamuryango kuri koperative ku mwaka, ni ugufata ibyo koperative yabonye byose ku mwaka bakagabanya n'umubare w'abanyamuryango, bityo bakamenya ni uwuhe musaruro cyangwa ni ayahe mafaranga umunyamuryango yakabaye abona mu bikorwa bakoze mu gihe cy'umwaka. Ikindi agaragaza ko ibindi bashingiyeho bakora ubwo bushakashatsi barebaga imiterere y'imirima bahingagamo, ubwoko bw'ubuhinzi bakoraga, niba ari ubuhinzi bwo kwihaza ubwabo cyangwa bugamije amasoko, ibikorwa remezo nk'imihanda, ibiro bakoreramo, aho babikaga storage cyangwa se stoke, ingendo bagenda zingana gute, hamwe ubwoko bw'ibihingwa bahinga n'uburyo babivanga, hamwe n'ibindi. Agaragaza ko nanone rero barebye aho baherereye, igihe koperative yabaga imaze, ndetse niba na koperative ifite abacungamutungo. Ubwo bushakashatsi rero babukoze nk'uko nabivuze mu bice bitandukanye, ntari busubiremo kuri buri bwoko bw'igihingwa koperative yahingaga. Icyo navuga nuko bo nanone yavuze ko babukoreye mu turere twose tw'igihugu, ukuyemo uturere tugize umujyi wa Kigali, kuko ni uturere 28 bakoremo dufite ibice binini by'icyaro bihingwa, ukuyemo uturere tw'umujyi wa Kigali. Bagaragaza ko rero bushakashatsi bugaragaza ko nanone ikawa ariyo yaje imbere ku mwanya wa mbere wa value chain, cyangwa se igihingwa kigaragaza amafaranga menshi cyangwa umusaruro mwinshi ku munyamuryango. Ni ukuvuga ngo ufashe umusaruro mbumbe wa koperative mu gihe cy'umwaka ukagabanya umubare w'abanyamuryango, ikawa yaje ku mwanya w'imbere igaragaza ko ariyo ya mbere itanga amafaranga menshi ku munyamuryango. Hakurikiraho ibigori, hakurikiraho imbuto, hakurikiraho umuceri, indabyo n'icyayi, hamwe n'ibindi. Ariko ibingibi nibyo byaje ku mwanya wa mbere ugereranyije n'ibindi. Yagaragaje rero ikarita igaragaza buri koperative aho iherereye mu gihugu n'ubugari bwa koperative. Uko akadomo kagaragazaga kuba kanini muri iyo karita, ni ukuvuga ngo ni nako koperative yageragezaga kuba nini mu gutanga umusaruro ku munyamuryango wayo wa koperative. Ni ukuvuga ngo uko buri kadomo uko ari kagari, niko koperative igenda ingana mu kugirira umusaruro mwinshi ku banyamuryango. Yongera agaragaza amakarita agaragazaho amakoperative yo muri bya bihingwa bitandukanye twavuze biza ku mwanya wa mbere agiye aherereye. Niba ari ikawa, ni ikihe gice ikawa ziherereyemo cyane zatanze umusaruro, niba ari ibirayi, niba ari ibigori. Ni ukuvuga ngo buri ikarita yagaragazaga aho buri koperative iherereye, ndetse n'urwego iriho mu rwego rwo kugira umumaro umunyamuryango, itanga umusaruro mwinshi kuri we mu gihe cy'umwaka. Ikindi yagaragaje ni ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje, yerekanye ni ikinyuranyo kiri hagati y'abagabo n'abagore mu makoperative, aho yagaragaje ko abagabo ari 40, abagore ari 45, then abagabo 55. Kandi nk'uko mubizi itegeko ry'amakoperative uyu munsi ryagiyeho kubera icyo kibazo, aho rigerageza gufasha abagore kuzamuka mu rwego rwo kugira uruhare mu makoperative. Ikindi no kugira ngo abo bagire umumaro mu gutunga imiryango, nk'uko tuzi ko aribo benshi mu mibare duhabwa n'ikigo cy'igihugu cy'ibarurishamibare. Ikindi yagaragaje ni uko ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje ko amakoperative 58 yagaragaje ko afite abacungamutungo, mu gihe 42 yagaragaje ko nta bacungamutungo agira. Bigaragara ko aho ngaho naho haba ikibazo mu icungamutungo, igihe koperative idafite abacungamutungo. Muri ayo makoperative yari afite abacungamutungo, ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje ko nibura 58 bagaragayemo 58% bagaragaye ko badafite education cyangwa ntibigeze basubiza ko hari amashuri bize, mu gihe dufite ubushakashatsi bugaragaza ko 16% bize amashuri yisumbuye, mu gihe 10% nibo barangije za kaminuza gusa, ndetse 15% bakiga amashuri abanza. Mu inararibonye bigaragaza ko nibura 61% by'abacungamutungo bagaragaje ko bafite inararibonye y'umwaka umwe kugeza ku myaka 5 muri ako kazi, ndetse abaje bafite umwanya wa nyuma nuko ngo 2% nibo bagaragaje ko bafite inararibonye riri hejuru y'imyaka 15 mu bintu bigendanye no gucunga amakoperative. Biragaragara ko hakenewe izindi ngufu. Mu kindi yagaragaje mu bushakashatsi bwagaragaje nuko byagaragaje ko nibura koperative bakoremo 400 zabaye sample 229 zagaragaje ko izo koperative zifite ibiro, mu gihe 171 nta biro zifite. Muri izo zifite ibiro nibura 158 zo zifitemo umuriro, zishobora gucana no gukoresha imashini kuko zifitemo electricity cyangwa umuriro, mu gihe izindi 71 nta muriro zifite, ndetse hakaba n'izindi bigaragara ko 59% zitagira stock, naho mu gihe 22 zo zifite stock. Mu zindi mibare nanone ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje nuko urugendo runini ari urwo koperative ikora iva hikorera cyangwa hituye igera i Kigali, ndetse ugasanga hari urundi rugendo. Nuvuga mu bigendanye n'ingendo bigaragara ko koperative zikora ingendo nyinshi, cyane muri izo ngendo nyinshi zikora ari ukuva aho bakorera bajya aho bahinga, kuva aho bakorera bajya ku ma office, kuva aho bakorera bajya aho babika kuri stock. Hari ingendo zitandukanye, ndetse no kuva aho bakora kugira ngo bagere kuri kaburimbo, ariko urugendo rero no kuva aho bakorera bajya i Kigali, cyane aho amakoperative amwe namwe afite amasoko. Icyo bagaragaje nanone ubushakashatsi bugaragaza nuko ayo makoperative amenshi atwara ibintu ku mutwe, 232 nuko agaragaza ko babyikorera ku mutwe, naho 152 bakabitwara ku magare, 110 bakabitwara mu modoka ntoya, naho 105 bakabitwara ku makamyo, biturutse ubwo ku miterere y'igihugu cyacu n'imisozi. Ikindi nuko 93% by'amakoperative yavuze ko atagera kuri kaburimbo, bivuga ngo 7% niyo afite kugera kuri kaburimbo cyangwa access to paved road. Ikindi ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje nko bwagaragaje ko abahinzi aho bakorewe ubushakashatsi 29% bavanga ibihingwa, ni ukuvuga ngo bashobora guhinga ibihingwa babivanze, naho 71% bagahinga igihingwa kimwe cyihariye. Tuvuge niba ari umuceri nta kindi bawuvangira, niba ari ibirayi nta bindi bavanga, mu gihe hari abandi bavanga ibihingwa cyangwa se bakabisimburanya. Ikindi bugaragaza ubushakashatsi ko 33% 67% imirima iri separe cyangwa se iri separated, mu gihe nanone 3% muri ubwo bushakashatsi bugaragaza ko ubuhinzi bakora ari ubuhinzi bwa business, nayo mu gihe 94% ari ubuhinzi bushingiye ku kwihaza mu biribwa. Nsoza wenda kuko iki bibazo bagaragajemo ibibazo bigendanye n'ihinduka ry'ikirere. Mu bihinduka by'ikirere harimo indwara, harimo imyuzure, ndetse n'izuba, aribyo bituma umusaruro ubasha kuba muke. Mu bushakashatsi findings cyangwa se iby'ubushakashatsi bwagezeho mu mibare ni ibyo ngibyo. Mu myanzuro rero ubushakashatsi bugaragaza ko hariho itandukaniro hagati ya koperative ikora ibingibi n'indi, kandi no muri koperative zimwe bigaragaza ko value chain cyangwa se koperative zikora imwe zigira umusaruro utandukanye. Ikindi bigaragaza ko uko kugaragaza ko umusaruro utandukanye ari amahirwe y'uko koperative zishobora gukorana. Ikindi ari uburyo hashobora kongerwa imikorere management ya koperative, ko niba zihinga ibihingwa bimwe zikora bimwe ariko zikagaragaza umusaruro utandukanye, byerekana ko hari ikibazo. Ikindi ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje ko aya makuru yaba ari ingenzi ku kigo nka NCCR, ku kigo nka RCA, kugira ngo kibashe gukorana n'amakoperative ndetse no kuyazamura mu mikorere yabo ya buri munsi. Rero isoza presentation cyangwa se ubushakashatsi buvuga ko hari igikwiye gukorwa, ari cyo policy dialogue mu rwego kugira ngo ubuhinzi butezwe imbere hashingiwe mu cyerekezo igihugu gifite ndetse na tekinoloji ikenewe. Ikindi kureba ko hazamurwa imiterere y'imiyoborere y'amakoperative cyane cyane mu rwego rwo kugira ngo hazibwe icyuho kiri hagati mu micungire, ikindi no mu gukoresha computer ICT cyangwa se gukoresha tekinoloji mu rwego rw'imikorere ya buri munsi yo gucunga koperative. Numva nasoreza ahangaha mu rwego rwo kudatwara igihe ko dufite igihe kitari kinini, ariko ibindi bibazo n'ibisubizo biragerageza gutanga amakuru menshi naba ntatanze muri iyi samari y'Ikinyarwanda. Murakoze. Back to you, Ariane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garikani, for translating for us. And dear participants, kindly take notes of the discussion points, and we'll get back to them in the discussion and reflection time. According to the agenda, the next presentation is about the research findings to formulate future strategic plans, implementation for agricultural cooperative. And there is no better way to have the agency with the core mandate of registration, regulation, and promotion of cooperative and capacity present about this important agenda point. With that said, please allow me to extend a warm welcome to the Director General of the Rwanda Cooperative Agency, Professor Jean Bosco Hanirimana. You're most welcome. You control the floor.
Thank you, MC. Permanent Secretary in the form, Permanent Secretary in the bill, Director of OCDC International Cooperative Research Group, Cooperative Group Partner, President of Federation, Union, Cooperative Leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Cooperatives are people-centered enterprises jointly owned and democratically controlled by and for their members to achieve common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations. This people-centered business model has a particularly vital role in rural areas, has been mobilizing mechanisms through a common purpose, covering a wide range of economic sectors and social needs. The potential of the cooperative model to generate and provide sustainability to social and economic enterprises capable and addressing their needs.
Excuse me, Professor. Sorry for cutting you short. We cannot hear you very well. Maybe you can see how we can adjust the sound. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Now I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Rwanda counts around 10,786 cooperatives with 5.3 million members, where males make up 52% and women 53%, with 53 billion shares in capital, 100 plus, where agricultural cooperatives dominate, comprising 46% of all cooperatives. African Union Agenda 2063 Goal 2 is to achieve well-educated citizens and skilled revolution, underpinned by science, technology, and innovation. And the East African Community Vision 2015 Goal 6 enhance the agricultural productivity for food security and transform the rural economy. Agricultural cooperatives in Rwanda contribute to the achievement of National Strategy Transformation NST1 for job creation, productivity, and transform the modernized agriculture sector. As started the new cooperative policy, among the roles and responsibilities of the Rwanda Cooperative Agency includes to support the cooperative movement, to collaborate with the development partners who could provide solutions to their needs, challenges such as provision of new training and technology. The national cooperative policy strives to enforce research and impact assessment of the cooperative sector to inform the policy and the effectiveness of cooperative policy. Among the challenges that we find in the consultation sessions of the cooperative policy drafting is the lack of research in the cooperative movement. We believe that OCDC ICRG GIS research, the agriculture cooperative has taken one step to help close those that find gaps. Can you hear me again?
Yes, and we can see you as well. Kindly, the video is off again.
We believe that cooperative leaders, stakeholders, and the partners, institutions, empowering the cooperative movement in Rwanda, here present may consider those research findings to inform decisions in their daily operations, purpose to promote the cooperative sector in Rwanda. The OCDC research findings cement the necessity of newly gazetted cooperative law, which was reviewed to solve some challenges in our cooperative movement as highlighted by those findings. It is through those data-driven findings that Rwanda Cooperative Agency wishes all cooperatives, partners, stakeholders, and development institutions to provide services and support the cooperative movement that may bring desired the change and critical contribution to their development. We have witnessed different and productive interventions from cooperative stakeholders and partners in the cooperative sector due to the fact that those interventions are not backed by verified data from the cooperative movement. Rwanda Cooperative Agency, in its full mandates, is committed to work with every entity willing to promote the cooperative movement in Rwanda by providing the right and updated information required to support the cooperative movement. I request all participants present here to value this information and to use them for decision making as well as strategic interventions and policy formulation to solve real issues on the ground and bring the real development impact to cooperatives. I take this opportunity to thank OCDC ICRG for this great work and all partners involved in this research. I hope it sets a good example for the rest of the entities supporting the cooperative movement in Rwanda. I'd like to also thank all participants here present for their participation, and the Rwanda Cooperative Agency promises to serve as your faithful partner to advance the development in this sector. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Professor Jean Bosco Haderimana, for a great speech and also the encouragement to cooperatives to use the GIS findings. With that said, I will again call upon Mr. Garikani to briefly translate the speech from the Professor Haderimana Jean Bosco, the Director General of RICEM. Kindly be brief. Kindly unmute again. Garikani.
Yes, murakoze cyane, ndihuta kuba brief icyo umuyobozi mukuru w'igihugu gishinzwe guteza imbere amakoperative mu Rwanda yavuze mu by'ukuri ni ukugaragaza amakoperative ko ari urwego rwiza rw'imiyoborere kandi rushingiye ku banyamuryango barwo. Nanone akagaragaza ko amakoperative ari kimwe mu buryo bwiza abanyamuryango bashobora kugera ku iterambere bifuza bakeneye, ndetse agaragaza ko nanone amakoperative akorera mu cyerekezo cy'igihugu cyihaye cya 2050 ndetse agaragaza ko n'ubushakashatsi bukorwa bushyigikiye amakoperative kugera kuri icyo cyerekezo. Ikindi yasabye yavuze yuko aya makoperative nanone agendanye ubushakashatsi bugendanye na gahunda na politike ya leta y'amakoperative aho ishyigikira cyane ubushakashatsi mu makoperative. Yongera asaba ko abanyamuryango b'amakoperative bakwiye kureba aya makuru y'amakoperative aturuka mu bushakashatsi ko ari ay'ingenzi bakwiye kuyakurikiza, ndetse n'abafatanyabikorwa bakorera mu makoperative ko bakwiye kushingira kuri aya makuru bakagerageza kuyashyira mu bikorwa no mu iteganyabikorwa gerageza gukorera amakoperative mu gihe kiri imbere. Ikindi avuze ko igihugu kinguye amarembo ku bafatanyabikorwa bose bashobora kugira icyo bafashanya bagafasha abanyamuryango b'amakoperative gutera imbere, aho yagaragazaga ko hari n'abaza bagatanga ubufasha ariko budafite umusaruro butanga. Avuga ko igihe cyose umufatanyabikorwa ufite icyo ashobora gufasha abanyamuryango, abanyarwanda, igihugu cyiteguye gufatanya nawe, ariko ubwo bufasha bukagira umusaruro bugomba gutanga. Asoza ashimira rero OCDC yakoze ubu bushakashatsi, ndetse ashimira n'abandi bose bashyigikiye kugira ngo ubushakashatsi bugerweho. Ikindi asoza ashimira ko buri wese yagira umunsi mwiza. Mu magambo make bikubiye muri ibyo. Murakoze cyane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garikani, for translating for us. Again, as per the agenda and also ensuring that we keep up with time, I would like to call upon 4 cooperative leaders whose cooperative have used the GIS and have integrated ICT in their daily farming operation to share their experience and best practices. We will begin with the leader of the cooperative named Kobakamu. You're most welcome, cooperative leader. As we await for the cooperative leader to share with us his experience, I hope that you are all ready for the Q&A part that is going to come up, and you took note of the discussion point that Ms. Leah Marie have showed us in her presentation to ensure that we have a very fruitful discussion and reflection. If the cooperative leader of Kobakamu is not ready, we can as well proceed with the cooperative leader of Kotevem, if he's available. All right, seems that the cooperative leaders are not available currently. All right, so I can see Kobakamu available. The floor is yours.
Murakoze. Murakoze, natwe nka koperative Kobakamu. Natwe turi mu bantu binjiye mu buryo bw'ikoranabuhanga. Aho tugenda dukoresha systeme zitandukanye mu bikorwa byacu bya buri munsi. Mu bijyanye hari uburyo bwo gupima imirima, aho tugenda dufata amakorodone ndetse tugafata n'ubuso bw'umurima wose. Niyo systeme dukoresha. Undi mu bijyanye no gupima icyayi dukoresha indi systeme yitwa CDMS. Mu by'ukuri habayeho igihe twajyaga dukoresha uburyo twakita bwa gakondo, tukandika mu dukayi, rimwe na rimwe ugasanga byatakaye cyangwa ugasanga habayemo no kutumvikana hagati y'abahinzi ndetse n'abakozi. Hanyuma hazaho no gukoresha imashini ariko zitari mu buryo bw'ikoranabuhanga. Hanyuma yaho rero tuza kubona ubundi buryo bwatworoherezaga. Iyo systeme yitwa CDMS, mu magambo arambuye bivuga Cooperative Data Management System. Mu by'ukuri idufasha mu bintu byinshi, harimo uburyo bwo kubika amakuru y'abanyamuryango neza kandi yose, ndetse n'amafoto yabo. Hakabamo n'uburyo bwo kubakorera amakarita mu buryo bworoshye, kuko iyo umaze gushyiramo amakuru, amakarita ahita yikora. Ikindi, iyi sisiteme idufasha no kubika umusaruro wa buri muhinzi, kandi bikadufasha n'uburyo dushobora kumenya ngo uyu muhinzi tuzamuha ifumbire ingana iki, kuko bitworohera gukora purani, tubona amakuru neza y'umusaruro ndetse n'aho ugeze, bikadufasha no guteganyiriza igihe kizaza. Hanyuma ikindi, iyi sisiteme inadufasha guhita dukora uburyo bwo kuba twakora amaraporo mu buryo bworoshye, kuko ukimara gushyiramo amakuru, hari aho ukanda habugenewe amaraporo akizana, washaka iy'umunyamuryango umwe cyangwa washaka iy'abanyamuryango bose muri rusange. Ibyo ngibyo byose tubibona mu buryo bworoshye. Hanyuma ikindi, iyi sisiteme idufasha mu buryo bwo gukora igitabo cy'abanyamuryango bitewe n'amakuru dukeneye, niyo dukora muri sisiteme, kandi ibyo ngibyo byikora mu buryo buri otomatike. Umumaro rero itumariye, idufasha koroshya akazi, ibyo dukeneye bigakorwa vuba kandi bigakorwa mu buryo bwihuse. Hanyuma ikindi, idufasha kubona ibitabo bikenerwa byose muri koperative, cyane cyane ibikenerwa na RCA ndetse n'izindi nzego zidukuriye, kandi bidufasha uburyo bwo gucunga neza ibikoresho bya koperative, kuko tuba tubibona muri sisiteme ndetse n'igenagaciro ryabyo, biratworohera. Ikindi, amahirwe tuba dufite muri iyi sisiteme ni uko ni sisiteme y'Abanyarwanda, tubona abatekinisiye hafi. Hanyuma ikindi kandi, iri no mu Kinyarwanda, biratworohera kuyikurikirana. Navuze byinshi rero kugira ngo nze kumara umwanya. Ikindi kirimo ni uko n'inzego zidukuriye zibona raporo, atari ngombwa yuko bibaye ko ziza muri koperative, kuko hari uburyo dushobora kubaha RIC bakinjiraho bakabona amaraporo. Hanyuma rero imbogamizi ikirimo, ntabwo muri iyi sisiteme mu by'ukuri yagutse ku buryo wakoramo ibikorwa byose bya koperative. Iracyagira n'ibikoresho bihenze, ariko ubundi natwe turi mu cyerekezo cy'iterambere nk'uko igihugu cyacu kibiteganya. Murakoze.
Thank you very much, the leader of Kobakamu Cooperative. We're going to have a wrap-up of all the experience and testimonies. But now, allow me to welcome again the leader of Cotevem. The leader of Cotevem, the floor is yours. As we are waiting for the leader of Cotevem, he mentioned that the system has been really useful for their daily operation as a cooperative, but they also still have some small challenges, but they're willing to also put on some effort so that those challenges can be resolved. He also mentioned that with the challenges, it's just the limitation as not all the function of their daily cooperative activities can use the system. So the World Church can as well support to ensure that the system can be leveraged to also many other, I would say, functions to ensure that the technology is used in the cooperative.
hano murakoze cyane. Nitwa Nkurikiyinka Vincent, ni umucungamutungo wa koperative y'abahinzi b'icyayi mu Gisakura.
Ndiya Nkurikiyinka, mumbabarire mbace mu ijambo, nabasabaga ko mwashyiraho na video yanyu.
Turacyari kubikora, ntabwo biri gukunda neza, banza ikibazo cya internet, ariko nijyaho ubwo gukunda.
All right, kindly proceed. Excuse me, the internet is not on. Nimbunyu ntabwo internet imeze neza, ntabwo turi kukumva neza. All right. Nikubabona, you can kindly proceed. Dear Mr. Gustave. We are going to first have Mr. Nkurikiyinka Vincent. So I will kindly ask Mr. Gustave Nikomeze to remove his video. Dear Mr. Gustave. Kindly stop sharing your video. Yes, thank you very much. I can see Mr. Nkurikiyinka Vincent. The floor is yours. Dear Nkurikiyinka Vincent, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Gustave again. My computer was not good, that's why I changed the computer. I'm Gustave. I do work as a data manager from Short Coffee Cooperative. Now I'm going to share with you how Short Coffee Cooperative is using GIS in its daily activities. Actually, from Shori, we do use GIS to map the location of our coffee plantation. We just want to know how many kilometers are from the farm to the coffee washing station to the cherry collection sites. That's why we use GPS just to take coordinates. We need to take geolocation data of our farms, and we need to map every farm to farm. And data that are corrected are analyzed, and the decision can be taken from the data that we have recorded. Actually, currently we are using ArcGIS in mapping. We do take different data, and we can do some more analysis just to know which area is prone to erosion, which area is being affected by climate crisis, climate change. We don't use only GIS, but we use GIS combined by remote sensing. Remote sensing actually helps us to study the crop health. We use satellite imagery from satellites and process them by using the remote sensing and do some more image classification. We also use the corrected data we do share with our partners, especially our buyers. Our buyers want to know where the coffee are located. They just want to know location of their coffees. That's why we do share with them the data that we have taken with GIS and the GPS coordinates. We are also using GIS in marketing our coffee, where we do some maps and showing the people who are interested in coffee and let them know how coffee is growing. And they can see some images and satellite imagery. If they are able to read the maps, they can be aware of what is on the map. Actually, this technology is being developed in our region, and we are using it, and we have realized that it's very essential for us. And the information that is taken by using the system is kept for a long period of time and can be used just to analyze what is happening and what can be done just to respond to the problem that is affecting our farmers. The current map that we are producing by using GIS are a map that we are using for both internal and external. We can share the maps with external partners, yeah. And we still have some problems that we are facing by using GIS because there is no many people who are able to use GIS and process data. We are still few people knowing that technology. Actually, have seen the results from the research that have been made, and you have seen how GIS is used just to make a research, and the findings can be shared with other people. And I really appreciate your participation and your good work that you've made through that research. Yeah. And that's exactly, we also have another system that is called the Eco Farmer app that we are using just to take the information of our farmers, just to record their produce, their day-to-day produce, their day-to-day agricultural activities, good agricultural activities. And we really think that ICT and GIS technology is essential in every cooperative's day-to-day lives. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. It's amazing how technology can positively impact so many things. All right. And again, now it's time for the Q&A questions, and the following all the such great presentation, all these testimonies and all the best practices on the GIS findings and application of the research, it is my pleasure to announce that the time for discussion and reflection has come, and I encourage you to ask questions so that all your concerns can be addressed. And once again, I would like to apologize for the inconvenience due to technological issues, but we are sure that it's not going to happen again. That said, I would like to again remind for the people with questions to please raise your hand or use the Q&A and chat session for your question. And once the floor is given for the one that raised their hands, to again remind us their names and the organization they are representing here. All right, it's starting really quick and well. I can see a hand raised. Dear Mr. Jean-Claude, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the presentation you have seen. Guys, I use this machine because my connection was not good. I use this of Jean-Claude. I have the question. The first one, as you have seen the ICT or digital in agriculture is more important, and you have seen that there is many cooperatives who didn't use it. And I think all cooperatives are encouraged by different partners, RCA and the other government institutions to use digital in agriculture. Unfortunately, there's some needs. It needs some equipment and infrastructure. As we are here with different partners, we have to look on how to assist those cooperatives to access on digital and ICT in agriculture. Especially, you see in Rwanda, we have many cooperatives in agriculture, but they still working on the analog system. It will be better if different partners in this meeting can help those cooperatives to achieve or to use this technology. They have the financial issues and some gaps. I'm from a cooperative called the Cooperative Gisakura. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I would like to maybe have at least 3 rounds of questions, and then we're going to have responses after 3 rounds of questions. Jean-Claude, your hand is still raised. Do you still have a question, or I can give the floor to someone else? All right, maybe it's just the hand that is still raised. I would like to call upon Mr. Matoro Alphonse. Your hand is raised. Mr. Matoro, can you hear me? I can see again Mr. Venuste Uitonze. The hand is raised. If he's available, he can quickly. Dear Jean-Claude, do you still have a question? I can see your hand is raised. In that Kwasakoti Nina, do you have a question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
My name is Uitonze Venuste. I'm a consultant from RICEM. I have a question. as you have seen that more cooperatives were assessed about BMR, and we know that BMR is connected with the harvest of the cooperatives. We cannot have a good harvest if we don't have fertile soils. For that reason, I think this research may be extended to the soil fertility patterns across the country, so that the policymakers may refer to the maps of those soil fertility, and it can help those cooperatives to work on the well-identified soils, and it can help other farmers to raise their harvest, because in Rwanda, most of cooperatives are in primary producers. So if we have the data of soil fertility, it will help to know how farmers can apply the fertilizers according to the fertility of their soils. As a result, it will increase the productivity of the soil, and at the same time, it will increase the BMR of those farmers and of those cooperatives as well. I wonder if this GIS, if they have a plan to extend the data they collect in that area of soil fertility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Venust. We are going to take another question. I can see in that Kwasako Kanyinya. The floor is yours. If in that Kwasako Kanyinya they are not available, I would like to call upon Man Sako. That's the name. In that Kwasako Kanyinya and Man Sako. I would like to now ask Ms. Leah Lucas-Marie to respond to the question while we wait for the others to as well have the technology ready for the questions. Dear Ms. Leah Marie.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the valuable questions that have come in. I have heard a couple of very stimulating questions verbally, and also have received 2 questions in written form. And so I would like to take the opportunity to respond first to the questions in writing. And one of these contributions came in through the chat from Andre G, and questioned how accessible this data and this information is to other development partners, suggesting that perhaps this could be most useful if it was made available on an online dashboard that could be hosted on a government website with detailed information about cooperatives, such as production areas, proximity to market, areas of intervention, and making the point that this could also be quite informative to potential agri investors. And we do agree very much with this contribution from Mr. Andre. In fact, it is really at the aggregate level that this data becomes so useful, and that we may be able to leverage the scale and really look at the systemic nature and way in which these different value chain variables are impacting each other. Additionally, speaking about the investment space, we understand that investors have different portfolios and also different areas of interest. And so whereas you may have some general agri investors, you could also have investors who are really only looking to invest in the cold chain, or they have a fund that is specifically generated that is going for agri-system investments into infrastructure. And so by having such a portal available to such parties, whether they are development partners or even DFCs and other entities, they would be able to understand where those investments may be most profitable and where they may have the largest impact. And so definitely we
we found that this data was very fun to explore, and also putting on an investor hat, you could really see how it could be helpful to inform these decisions with the real-time data. Additionally, another question that came in the chat was regarding, from an anonymous user, was regarding the percent of the sample that was conducting subsistence agriculture. And so very rightfully so, we found a very large percent of our sample, 97% of the cooperatives that were also engaged in subsistence agriculture. And so this contribution is bringing up the point, this data is scarcely for economic development, especially agri-export promotion, any holistic strategies on this issue, end quote. And so regarding this this question and this provocation, I would respond by saying that just doing subsistence agriculture does not necessarily reflect poorly on the agribusiness system. And so I would say that there could be some other proxy variables in the value chain and even in the operations of the cooperative that would be more suitable for us to measure whether or not the agribusiness cooperative, let's say whether or not the agricultural cooperative is really functioning as an agribusiness. And so it is quite common in many countries, especially in Rwanda and in countries of the region, that families may have subsistence plots, which is solely for the consumption of the family. And so I've worked in previous projects on home garden projects or on small plots trying to increase leafy greens in the diet and such types of initiatives. So I would say that it's not in either or, and there can be very important benefits for nutrition at the household level by still doing some production of agriculture. And so I don't think that we need to look at this finding as necessarily a negative. It can be a positive for food security at the household level, but what is a very valid point and what we would agree is very important is that we have strategies that are really building systems for profitable agri-export promotion and linking these cooperatives to the markets, again, with all of the necessary infrastructure and storage systems so that we have not only products getting to market, but high quality products that are going to get premium prices. And so that would be my two answers to these two questions that have come in the chat, and I will hand it back to the moderator for the additional discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah, for the responses. And also, I can see another question in the chat. It's like, how can you find this research report? Because it is very helpful. Dear Miss Leah, did you hear me?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
I'm happy to take that question as well. So thank you very much. We're very pleased by the interest and by the large participation in this topic. We know that this is not the first webinar and discussion to be held on this topic of great importance to Rwandan development, and it certainly will not be the last. So we really hope that this conversation may really just spark some additional debate and dialogue amongst the partners who are active on the ground in country and designing policy. Regarding the research report, we will be sharing the presentation with you over email, and so we will count on our partners RICEM to facilitate the sharing of data, and we will have internal conversations with our research partners regarding the long-term storage of the data. So please do stay tuned. We will be working with our local liaison, Mr. Gallican, and also our co-host for this seminar, RICEM, to continue in the discussions. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I will again allow one more question. I can see MD Musasa Ernest. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Mutoni Wase Marikas, RICEM trainer. I have a question.
Sorry, cutting you short. Can you also put on your video so that we can see your beautiful face?
Thank you. I was saying my name is Umutoni Grass. I have two questions. My first question is about the agriculture production for lacking of marketing for the product from farmers. Someone lives in a remote area, and to assess the market is a question for them. What are the measures addressed for those farmers who live in a remote area? Because sometimes it causes loss, because compared to the land where they make farmers, it is a big challenge to assess the market. And also there is a fluctuation of prices, sometimes cause for loss for those farmers who has the oriented businesses. Another question is about agriculture insurance caused by climate shocks. Sometimes they lose what they have planted, and also there is a limited access to agriculture insurance. What are the measures addressed for those major challenges faced by farmers? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Grace. This is a really good question, as we saw in the presentation from Ms. Leia Lucas-Marie, that only 7% of those cooperative, all the member of cooperative lives in areas that are paved. So we still have 93%. So that is a really good question that I would like Ms. Leia to respond to, so that we can understand how they are going to address that challenge and to ensure that the GIS also reaches to all those remote areas.
Yes, thank you so much for this question, which really highlights three of the key challenges that the madam who spoke is dealing with in the production. So the first point was regarding how to access markets, linkages to markets, how to cope from climate shocks that are a hindrance or keeping the farm from achieving maximum yields, and also the limiting variable, which is the inavailability of insurance for some of your crops. And so I would say that these are three very important variables and challenges that we are documenting. We will be including these interventions in the write-up summary of this webinar. We thank you for raising them. I don't necessarily have the answer, as it is for the Rwandan partners to intervene related to the national strategies and programs that will be addressing these three limiting factors and challenges for agricultural production. But I do believe that from the data that we have, we can stand by these three challenges and assert that the data backs up these anecdotes that have been shared. While we did not look into insurance, we do have the data that is related to the markets and the climate. And so we welcome partners to put your heads together and offer some solutions, maybe today or maybe in days to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can see there's some other people with questions, but as the time is not allowing us, I will request to directly contact the co-host, RICEM, and also the local liaison, Kesegarikan, for more inquiries. And I believe they are also very ready for that. With that said, we are again honored with the presence of the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, and I would like to invite the Permanent Secretary to provide the acknowledgement and the closing remarks to this webinar about what GIS can tell us about the market viability of Rwandan agriculture cooperative. Mr. Jean-Claude Musabyimana, you are most welcome.
Thank you, moderator. Dear PS of Minicom, dear DG RCA, dear researchers, panelists, and speakers, dear participants. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to the speakers and the panelists from the cooperative for their valuable contributions to this virtual meeting on GIS research and the policy dialogue meeting. My deepest gratitude goes to all who attended this meeting and helped to make it such a successful event. As we know, the GIS technology in agriculture cooperatives is a complex subject, and it is important that some of its dimensions are highlighted in this meeting. The past couple of hours have brought many clarifications and lights on our attention, and I congratulate the organizers on ensuring this level of participation. My sense is that there is now an acceptance that the subject must be the focus of sustained attention by the government, by the private sector, and other development partners. We have already heard very complete details on how is useful the GIS applications in cooperative development. I thank all the panelists and the participants, and I will not attempt to repeat them here. Instead, I would like to share with you my few personal thoughts on the topic at hand. Dear participants, Rwanda has leveraged GIS in land management by putting in place a comprehensive GIS-based land administration and information system. This enabled the land management and administration easy, guaranteed the security of land tenure, facilitated the all land services accessibility in Rwanda. Rwanda also established a strong geodetic network and availed the reference-based maps and surveying reference points, the national geoportals, the national spatial development infrastructure, as well as different reports on the matter of GIS and even remote sensing. It is an important step that agricultural cooperatives also consider utilizing this GIS infrastructure and data available to enhance their market viability. All our speakers today have acknowledged that GIS is an important tool to advancing agricultural cooperatives development, and it can be used to transform ideas into new business solutions and create a new cooperative business model. Besides the descriptive and spatial findings and the research, GIS provides the ability to analyze and visualize agricultural environment and workflows, which has proven to be very beneficial to those involved in the farming industry, like soil status, the climate, water availability, and other production parameters. While natural inputs in farming cannot be controlled, they can be better understood and managed with GIS applications such as crop yield estimates, soil maintenance analysis, erosion identification, and remediation. GIS data can be used to better anticipate how much fertilizers will be needed in a specific region, field and crop sections, how long is the transport, how easy is the market population, and GIS can be used to localize and analyze best performance, best production zones and markets. Dear participants, I am truly satisfied that the meeting participants have understood the importance and use of the ICT tool, especially this GIS technology, in the development of agricultural cooperatives in all value chains. I believe that the government agencies and development partners here present will set a good example in their future strategic plans and interventions to tackle some challenges and issues highlighted here by research findings. As we know, one swallow does not make a spring, and we need numerous partners to come together and make concerted efforts to conduct more and further research to the areas that have not received attention to make a positive change in agricultural cooperative development. Here, I would like again to reiterate our gratitude for a sustained support of the government of Rwanda, OCDC ICRG, and other partners to this initiative. I hope that many more committed partners will emerge, and we will observe many more and new exciting undertakings. This is unquestionably requires extra hard work as well as intellectual, financial, and human resources to realize this research work and coordinated program. Therefore, let me wish all of us a lot of energy, passion, shared confidence, and determination on our journey toward attaining a better future for all. I thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the concluding remarks, Mr. Jean-Claude Musabyimana. And I would like as well to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your active participation, and I look forward to us working together to leverage GIS data and method towards Rwanda Vision 2050 goals. Thank you.